Hi there, Coach Ivan here. I hope you are off to a great start to the week and your Monday is going well. I have a question for you. Are you constantly pressing that restart button every Monday? Well, you're not alone. And in today's thought of the day, I thought I would try and share some light on why that may be happening and how this can be really destructive if you're trying to make short-term changes for long-term success, and provide you with some practical tips that you can start using right away to avoid this sort of vicious cycle from repeating itself. And so working with clients over the years, I've realized that this is a common trend that takes place, one that I feel warrants our conversation. And a lot of people who are trying to lose weight or go through some sort of body recomposition think that it's okay if I sort of eat healthy during the week, I can binge or overeat on the weekend. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. Our bodies don't work that way, and they don't do well with these extremes, and I'll kind of explain that shortly. Before you look at trying to make changes, you have to first ask yourself, why is this happening on a weekly basis? And why are we sort of quote unquote not eating our normal foods on the weekends? Is it because maybe you feel deprived during the week that you don't have this kind of item of food? Or maybe that you're so overstressed that when it comes to the weekend, you kind of just relax and let everything go? Or is it also maybe because of who you're with, family or friends, and it's the environment that you're in that's causing you to overeat or eat items of food that you normally would not be eating? So this is the first step. And so you need to become aware of what you are doing before making any change. Once you kind of begin to understand what is causing you to sort of binge or overeat, you can start beginning to make changes. Because making changes just to make change, it doesn't give you that purpose behind it, right? So that's an important first step foremost. That's really important. For those maybe who feel deprived of certain sort of unhealthy foods during the week, why are you waiting for the weekend to have it? Why not just include that during the week in your sort of quote unquote normal meals? First, you probably won't feel, or you won't actually eat the entire thing, because now you kind of balanced it out with your sort of quote unquote normal meal, and that item of food that you sort of included, you won't maybe eat the whole thing like a Snicker bar or a piece of cake, because you already balanced it out with sort of nutritious food before that, instead of actually eating the whole thing on the weekend. Secondly, you won't feel as guilty for having that with the meal otherwise you would when you had on the weekend, and because you ate a whole bag or a whole cake and you couldn't control yourself. So that guilt factor will be a lot smaller, and you can have that meal or that sort of unhealthy food at small junctions throughout your week, so that it's more balanced versus a one-time deal on the weekend. Third, you kind of give yourself permission to allow that sort of unhealthy food during your week. And because at the end of the day, a calorie is a calorie. Albeit, of course, there is differences in terms of what it gives you on a macro and micronutrient level. But at the end of the day, if you kind of take into account that sort of caloric intake for that meal, and you have that unhealthy food, that's still going to be there. Versus having sort of that unhealthy food all at once, and it doesn't have that balance, it's not going to provide you with the proper nutrients and keep your immune system strong when you need it to be strong. So it's important to sort of know that and give yourself permission to include it. But most importantly, you are not telling yourself that this food item is off limits, but you're allowing yourself to really enjoy it, and albeit it's going to be in a smaller and more manageable way. So this constant sort of restarting can wreak havoc on your body, not just physically, psychologically, and emotionally. So constantly kind of going through this sort of extreme roller coaster rides of doing so well and then doing so poorly, it really takes an effect on the body. And wouldn't it just be better if you just go through sort of like a kiddie roller coaster, just those kind of small bumps and downs, and that's normal. We're all going to face those sort of peaks and valleys, but the extreme ones versus the sort of normal kind of rides are a lot more beneficial for our bodies long term. And so our brains, and the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is that our brains are not well equipped for these sort of big abrupt changes that we want to do sometimes. And yes, you might see some results and feel some results early on, but in the long term, those abrupt changes will not stick. And so you're more likely to go back to where you started from, or even worse, go a little further down, and you're going to be constantly going back to the sort of kind of that restarting button again and restarting the whole process over. And trust me, I've been there, and I've kind of ridden on these sort of extreme roller coaster rides, and it's difficult. And I want to let you know beforehand that you might feel these difficulties. That's a normal process, but it's a lot better to go on those sort of a smaller sort of extremes versus those two big extremes, right? Doing so good and then doing so poorly, and then feeling guilty in between. So it's important that if you are really trying to, I know myself included, like even now, I kind of have to catch myself from making these sort of big changes, and not only when it comes to nutrition. These principles really apply to a lot of other aspects of your life. And it's really important to understand this principle of not going to those extremes. And so my advice is to really, when I work with people or work with clients, is that to really understand when it comes to nutrition, you got to take those small positive steps in the right direction and truly realize how you want to see yourself success long term. And then those steps are really important, and you can't skip those steps, because if you do, you're going to really not progress forward. And as a result, you can't think that those results will come tomorrow, right? And keep in mind, as you're getting results or trying to get results, they don't always come in numbers and how your clothes fit. They also can come in forms of how you feel, the quality of your sleep, how productive you are at work or around with your family, and just for yourself, your level of energy and that sort of a mojo that you have during the day. So that is also results from this sort of effect. And so maybe starting today, give yourself permission to include those sort of quote unquote danger foods in your normal meals during the week, and include that piece of chocolate or that sort of cookie that you always are wanting to have, but you feel like you can't because you got to be so restrictive during the week. And include it into your salad or after your salad, and include it after your chicken dinner or whatever it may be, instead of waiting for the weekend. And don't be too restrictive, especially when it comes to food, because in the long term, it's going to hurt you a lot more. And finally, be okay with not having everything perfect every day. Maybe today you didn't do as well as you had planned, and that's okay. But because tomorrow is a new day and a new opportunity to make those small changes and to do a little bit better. And just so you know, I have 2 spots available for my online training for this month. And if you are a young professional who is interested in looking for a little bit more accountability, a little bit more support, and some more direction and guidance going forward, and are willing to put in the work, do not miss this great opportunity. You'll get a chance to work with me one-on-one, where we'll work together to begin to deliberately focus on what you need to do in a step-by-step process in order to make those big changes become big results. Those small changes become big results. And if that's you, message I'm in for June, and I'll get back to you with more details. You can also go to my bio, and I'll attach a link below, where you can actually book a complimentary consultation call or fill out my online application, where I can kind of learn a little bit more about you and see if we're going to be a good fit working together. I hope you found this information useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and ciao for now.